Welcome to Psychology Corner. This is the audio version of The Class Game Was Always Rigged, The Collapse of a Broken Concept, exposed by Squid Game 2025, Netflix series, movie analysis. At some point in time, civilizations took a wrong turn, and thousands of years later, we haven't recovered. The premise. Early humans lived in small, egalitarian hunter-gatherer groups with shared resources and fluid leadership. Before about 10,000 BCE, social status was based on skill, age, and communal sharing. With the advent of agriculture, kin-based tribal societies emerged, featuring prestige roles tied to control of food surplus and kinship. Everything seemed still fine from a social perspective, and the newly emerging environment allowed humans to thrive. And then, something happened. By 3000 BCE, early civilizations like Mesopotamia and Egypt formed, introducing rigid, hereditary class systems based on land, religion, and political power. Complex urban societies required the sacrifice of the many to the benefit of the few. Slavery through coercion or direct violence became the pillar of the rise of civilizations. Humans ruled over other humans based on arbitrary criteria that seemed linked to objective elements but that were actually designed and selected by a handful of privileged individuals to mainly benefit them and their own. For humanity, things only went downhill from that point on. If you care about freedom and other naturally occurring human rights, that is. During the feudal and imperial eras, 500 CE to 1500 CE, social hierarchy became even more entrenched, with strict birthright and land-based status. What mattered most was the social status you were born into. Nobility and royalty inherited their rank, land, and power regardless of merit, through family lineage. The vast majority, though, peasants, serfs, and laborers, were bound to the land and offered little to no mobility between classes. The system created a self-reinforcing loop where status, privilege, and power were passed down generationally, while the majority remained locked in inherited positions with little hope of change. Then the Con era started, industrial capitalist societies, 1800 CE to 1950 CE, and modern capitalist democracies, 1950 CE to present, manufactured the lie according to which the official direction is toward egalitarianism and freedom, while not so overtly maintaining systems that only rebranded the slave status and fooled many by allowing exceptions where lucky, most of the time, or skilled individuals, rarely, made the jump upward between classes. These social eras introduced and glorified the middle class, the mirage offered to modern slaves that they've moved from the lower level of society to a better one that can, for selected slaves only, become a trampoline toward the highest status there is. Education, one of the most precious achievements and activities of mankind, became the main weapon against free humans. By shifting the individual's focus from internal motivation, learning for the sake of knowledge and skill acquisition, to external motivation, learning for degrees and the chance of higher monetary rewards, the evil designers of modern societies turned people away from relevant achievement and pushed them on the path of organized building of the perfect slave. The previous privileged classes retained their status, power, social designer role and, most importantly, their freedom. And that's why we all live in the mess that we're in right now. And no, I don't want to hear about how modern society is so much more evolved than the hunter-gatherers and other egalitarian societies. That is not the point. The point is that we could have retained the direction toward technological and social growth without killing basic human rights in the process. We screwed up, and we need to own it. Better yet, we need to change it. The collapse of modern society is increasingly noticeable for anyone paying attention. My dissent isn't anything new, and the disillusionment has been voiced by so many others before. Many influential thinkers, writers, and leaders throughout history have warned about social inequality, rigid hierarchies, and the moral, political, or spiritual dangers of stratified societies. Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains, was Genevan philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau's way of saying it, and it fits the modern world. Ancient and classical thinkers such as Confucius, Laozi, Plato, and Aristotle, alongside modern and 20th century voices like that of George Orwell, and many, many other known and unknown individuals who lived on this earth, have all tried to open the eyes of the enslaved individuals and usher in an era of freedom and enlightenment. Few listened. Even fewer did something based on the message they've received. The fight to open eyes, better minds, and trigger action is still active. Many of us are still trying to correct the course of civilization. One such effort is through meaningful, relevant art, science, and carefully crafted social discourse. Art reaches more people than any other communication media. It can hide nuggets of wisdom, warnings, and lessons in aesthetically pleasing, emotionally soothing projects. One such recent project is the Netflix original series Squid Game, created and directed by the brilliant Hwang Dong-hyuk. I will analyze in this article the project's relevance in exposing the rigged game of social class and why we need to move beyond this dangerous social stratification if we want to regain our freedom. Spoilers ahead. About Squid Game. Squid Game, 2021 to 2025, is a South Korean dystopian thriller that dramatizes the brutal consequences of social inequality. Through a deadly competition created for the entertainment of the elites, where the poor fight for survival and a massive cash prize, it exposes the deep flaws in class systems and challenges the illusion of fairness in society. The social classes and mobility in Squid Game. There are three main social classes in Squid Game and three elements that connect them and signify social mobility, with its perks and limitations. The players, the lower class. The lowest class one can be part of in Squid Game is that of the average game participants, the 456 contestants, mainly known by their assigned numbers, rather than by their names. They have the worst game experience, being the ones who have to risk everything, put in all of their skills and effort, and receive an ultimate reward that is not the advertised wealth, but survival. You go through hell just to live another day, or another game, in the show's context. Poverty, desperation, and greed bring them into the game. The pink soldiers, the middle class. The pink soldiers or guards represent the middle class. Their skills and real background, meaning average lifestyles instead of desperation and survival, allowed them to be assigned roles above the participants. They don't act on their own volition. Most of the time, they execute orders. They punish or reward the average contestants. They carry out the dirty work of the upper class by getting rid of those who are either too weak or an inconvenience for the elites or game managers. Whatever made them that way, the pink soldiers are ruthless and almost void of empathy. It's what secured their position in the game. They can't die during the normal stages of the competition, they only enforce rules they didn't create. The middle class supports a variety of individuals who pertain to the pink guards, the role of which is to keep the game's wheels rolling smoothly. Here we have managers, soldiers, workers, that include waiters, cleaning staff, even human furniture or sex slaves to be used by the VIPs, and, yes, the recruiter, whom I will address later. The middle class roles are signaled in Squid Game through geometrical shapes painted on the front of the guard's metal face covering. Managers can be identified by the square, the soldiers by a triangle, and general workers by a circle. They no longer retain their identities, they've become social synonyms of their occupations and ways through which they serve the upper class. Sounds familiar? The VIPs, the elite or high class. The highest class in Squid Game is represented by the VIPs, a group that includes the game's creator, Oh Il-nam. Those whose wealth places them in a privileged position of observers and beneficiaries of the game's gory entertainment value. Many of the people who watched the series found the VIPs incredibly annoying, from their redundant commentaries to their accents. Everything linked to the VIPs conveys they are rather unintelligent, shallow, disconnected from reality, unempathetic, cruel and, in general, bland. Their identities remain hidden from everyone else, but their presence is known and even felt at times. The VIPs may choose to join the game's lower class, but only as a choice to directly experience the thrill of being their direct torturers. If they were to join the game, the VIPs would be safe from harm at all times. The middle class would protect them. Even though the final portrayal of the VIPs may have not been the director's intention, I am not sure whether he wanted them to be this vapid. The end result seems to capture the nature and main traits of the so-called real elites best. The connectors and gatekeepers, social mobility elements. In the series, we also get to see two intermediary classes, parties of one, each. Player 456, Song Gi-hun, represents the individual who managed to win his advancement from the lower to the upper classes, though not necessarily next to the VIPs. 456 is one of the game's winners and, consequently, he deserves a place among the VIPs based on his new wealth. However, he decides not to join those who are detached and indifferent to the game's mechanisms and consequences and, instead, becomes a system rejecter and the one who attempts to open the eyes and save as many new players as possible. He wants the games to stop, but to achieve that, he needs to convince the majority of players to vote for the decision. He is, therefore, a link between the lower class and the middle class, and a direct threat to the elites. He knows, he understands, and wants no part in the bloody game, even if it has rewarded him so far and can reward him further. The reason why I say Song Gi-hun is a link between the lower class and the middle one is that if he were to convince a sufficient number of players to vote X to end the game, the saved individuals would become middle class, not VIPs. They would win some money and would get to live a life free of the deadly dangers of the games. And then we have the front man, Hwang In-ho, who is the link between the pink soldiers and the VIPs, and the one who decides the game's rules and fate of contestants outside the direct game outcomes. The front man is key in the game. He is to ensure the entertainment of the VIPs, while coordinating the pink guards and making sure they do their job in relation to the contestants. He is the glue, the enforcer, the mastermind and, if the situation calls for it, the front man won't shy away from any direct action, honorable or not, that needs to be taken to protect the game and its beneficiaries. He is a former winner of the game himself, and the effort and personal transformation that he went through seem worth it because of the position that he now gets to occupy, not necessarily enjoy, though. Hwang In-ho feels entitled to the position because he made the sacrifices. While he shares some traits with the VIPs, he is not their peer, and embodies everything they aren't: highly intelligent, in control, aware. The front man and player 456 are the loneliest individuals in the game. They're in between classes, torn between personal interests and higher aspirations. The front man's loneliness can be potentially solved if player 456 chooses to join him. If Song Gi-hun chooses the same path and becomes a manipulator and enforcer in the class between the pink soldiers and the VIPs, then Hwang In-ho would have not only a peer but also validation of his previous choice. This is what winners of the game do: they fight, win, to access a higher position. But player 456, as we've come to discover in seasons 2 and 3, has no desire to sacrifice everyone in his path to simply become the game's repeat winner and do the same things that Hwang In-ho chose to do to become the front man. Song Gi-hun himself remains lonely since he is also very different from the other players, especially after winning the first time. The game needs all of these classes to function properly. Players, workers and enforcers, all to legitimize and serve the VIPs. But while we understand why the middle and upper classes would willingly become part of the game, why would anyone end up as a mere participant? Enter the recruiter. No, I didn't forget about him. Upper middle class, above workers and soldiers, his former roles, below the front man's rank. The game would be no fun without the right participants. Someone needs to make sure that those placed in the game are made of the stuff needed to be a participant and not much else. This skilled manipulator's role was to detect desperation, greed, and basic level skills in those he encountered and challenged to a game of dakji. If his manipulation works, the individuals accept the invitation to Squid Game. And that's how their actual nightmare begins, a children's game and a small monetary gain. The appetite for more is triggered in many, and that's why the competition never runs out of participants. The recruiter's position is similar to the front man's, in the sense that he is placed between the pink guards and the VIPs. He was a worker and a soldier, never a participant. He, too, proved worthy of his new role, which allowed him to step outside of the game's restricted environment, but didn't have to risk his life for it. That's what makes the front man a higher rank compared to the recruiter. But then again, if no one had convinced you to play the game because it might be really good for you, none of the tragedies would have happened, and if he had targeted other individuals, the tragedies would have happened to other players than the ones we've come to know during the 3 seasons. The recruiter is a gatekeeper. He controls the access to the opportunity of winning the money after playing all the games in a Squid Game session. The recruiter's sociopathic traits make him the first torturer of the players. Also note that the recruited participants can only come from poor and sketchy backgrounds. Elites and middle classes who decide to join the game as participants only do so for fun. The VIPs who started hunting participants in Season 3, out of duty, the front man, or curiosity, o il nam. Translated into modern social roles and dynamics, the point of it all. One can reasonably argue that the series creator used real-life social stratification as the inspiration for the game's structural elements, and that's all there is to it, only one direction to look at things. I say it is worth looking in the other direction as well, decoding the messages that the show hid in the artistic portrayal of these real classes, and apply the findings to reshape one's view of the world. Here are my main observations in this sense. Feel free to add your own. I will also mention here that I do not claim to have uncovered the show creator's intention or raw message. This is just my interpretation of his work, hoping that it won't minimize or distort beyond recognition any of his purposeful meaning. Elites only exist because the lower classes obey. Without compliance, the hierarchy collapses. Class is a choice, not a natural law. With no players and pink guards, there are no VIPs. If the players refuse to play and the guards refuse to do the elite's bidding, there is no game. The VIPs only have power over the players inside the context that functions based on the arbitrary, ridiculous, and dangerous modern social stratification. If you don't accept the stratification criteria, there's no rigid class separation. You accept the lower class role, it's not just assigned to you at birth. Take player 222, for example, the baby who won the latest edition of Squid Game. She can choose to either continue the class game or attempt to end it once and for all. Class erases identity to enforce control. When they label you, they reduce you to a tool. Reject the role, reclaim your name. Identity comes first. People who want to erase who you are and replace your complex existence with a label that only marks your usefulness in their plan and goals, don't have your best interests at heart. Why would you ever validate their erasure of you? Make sure you're seen, not classified. Player 222, the new one, has no name yet. You start as a number, a statistic in someone else's game. Class systems lie about the limits of your life. You were told this is all there is, but life exists beyond their rules and rewards. There's life outside of the game. Many don't realize, once they enter the competition's environment, but there is an entire life to be lived outside those made-up rules. The game's creators, enforcers, and beneficiaries all have a direct interest to create the illusion that your future is dependent on the environment they've placed you in. That is not true. You can make your own life, your own rules, outside of the game. Distress is engineered to keep you in your place. Poverty and fear aren't accidental, they're features of class, not bugs. There is an active interest from the elites to keep everyone else in a state of distress. Poverty, hunger, desperation, coercion, and fear, these are all used to manipulate individuals in staying in roles they know aren't safe for them. Religion and spiritual beliefs are also used to enforce class rules and spread hope through fear. Class uses greed as a cage, not a ladder. The promise of wealth keeps the poor chasing power that only the elite can hold. Rewards and greed keep you trapped in the lower classes. In Squid Game, Contestants play deadly games to win money. Pink guards stay in the game because their role offers relative protection and status. Greed motivates all lower classes, both players and corrupt guards want more money. For it, the first risk their lives, while the second risk their integrity and privileged position. When you want more of the stuff you don't really need, you're locked in the social class game. Rigid class systems always lead to violence. Hierarchies make enemies of neighbors and turn survival into civil war. Stratified societies based on rigid criteria are never safe, for anyone. Injustice, inequality, and overt manipulation, these are powerful triggers for one's violent potential, physical or otherwise. Even those who are generally non-violent will rise against their oppressors if the pressure is high enough. Lower class members will rise against the middle class because they want their privileged position, and against the elites because they know their status and free of worry life is not based on merit, it's not earned. Middle class individuals will attack the lower class to protect their elevated social position. The middle class will rarely rise against the elites though. The oppression doesn't feel as strong at middle levels, and the average individual's hope that they will one day become the VIP's peers is more alluring than killing the embodiment of their own dream. All classes fear the elites. Sometimes, it's justified, the elites can use their middle-class minions to destroy those who oppose them, but when taken at face value, it becomes an unfounded fear. With no one willing to do their bidding, the upper class is almost incapable of reaching any meaningful goal on their own. There's always someone ready to recruit you into the next nightmare. The face changes, but the trap stays the same. The recruiter is real. Someone, somewhere, has to convince the new generations that it is worth playing the game one more time. And then the exploitation happens once more, for the new wave of players. The promises vary, from keeping the tradition, to income, to status, but there is always someone who claims to be able to tell you exactly how to achieve it. And they lie to you about the process and the outcomes. Think of the latest generations, they were promised that education, college degrees, especially, will secure a good life for them and a privileged social position. Did they all get that? No. In fact, we live in a time when college degrees are meaningless, because they no longer correlate with field-specific skill. Contribute socially now, and you will live a peaceful retirement, true. Again, no. Vote for me now and I will, again, a lie. Stop buying into someone else's promises and build your own life. The middle class protects the system that betrays them. Without the middle class enforcing the rules, the elite lose their foot soldiers. You change the mentality of the middle class, you change the world. Everything would be different if the middle class would just refuse to play the game based on the elite's rules. Since the lower class lives mainly in survival mode, it would be quicker to reason with the middle class and bring about change. If the middle level isn't there to torture the lower class and refuses to serve its masters, the slave game is over. Think of your manager, your employer. Yeah. You're not protected, you're used. You will never join the elite, the game is sealed. Class mobility is a myth. You can mimic power, but you'll never be one of them. You can never become a real VIP. The game is rigged to work against you, unless you inherited the VIP status. The game even disqualifies new money when wealth is the criterion. You may win enough at life to emulate the elites who created the game or get to manipulate its rules, but you will never be fully one of them. Two previous winners of the brutal game, Huang Yinho and Song Gi-hun, weren't elevated to VIP status, just upper middle class. They aren't part and will never be part of the original privileged group. And that is valid for you, no matter how hard you will work at your 9 to 5. Or how much you grow your company. VIP status is not earned, it's inherited. Class survives by hiding who's really in power. You can't fight what you can't see, the elite protect themselves with masks and myths. The VIP's identities are secret to protect them. The same applies in real life. The real game manipulators remain unknown to avoid any reaction against them from the lower classes. They also don't believe they should explain themselves to mere players or workers. Only education and empathy can dismantle class. Awareness and care are how we stop playing and start living freely. Education and empathy, the way out of the madness. Knowledge, skills, and common sense build strong societies. If people could see the present stratification of society is nothing but a game, meaning it is all an artificially created environment, and if they cared enough for themselves and others, they'd simply become unable to participate in the charade. In a class system, winning still means losing. Even those who succeed are trapped in a system that kills meaning and humanity. Playing the game is, ultimately, not worth it. Except for the elites, in this artificial environment based on anything other but merit, everyone is a loser, no matter how high they climb that social ladder. The players die, the guards lose their focus and integrity. Everybody hates everybody. When survival is the stake, you may ultimately have no friends. If you chose really badly, that's valid even when money alone or status are the stakes. Class is a rigged game, and that's the point. There's nothing to fix because it's not broken. It was built this way. The game is not fair by design. You are not to win this game. No one is winning per se. Elite roles can't be lost, lower classes cannot become VIPs, and, even if you're really good at playing the game, the rules change all the time. Remember that in Squid Game, the front man changed the rules as he pleased. He gave Gi-hun a knife to use against the other players, considered the child of 222 a player even before it was born. Some players were spared when they should have been killed. Gi-hun's in-tooth tracker was removed while Jang Jiam-ja's, or player 149's, hairpin was allowed, etc. Unfair advantages will always exist, especially in rigged games. Class is a human invention, freedom means letting it go. There's no natural order here. Only choices we no longer need to make. Playing the game is ultimately meaningless. Naturally, humans are born free. There's no inherent social stratification feature. We can collaborate to reach common goals, but no one has to be in charge as a fixed status. Based on skills and other agreed upon criteria, hierarchies can be put in place temporarily to achieve desired results. Want airplanes? Follow the engineers. Need medical treatments? Follow the ones with medical knowledge and skills. But when you step out of those contexts, you should have no boss or authority telling you where to move next or, even worse, tell you what your worth as a human is. These are only a few of the arguments that can be found in Squid Game, which can be used against the idea of maintaining the concept of social class in practice. It simply doesn't lead to evolution or fulfillment. It destroys who we are as humans. Enter the age of AI, don't get me started with that subject now. Plenty of historical data suggests that the surest way to win at life is simply not to enter the class game. And this is our main issue. We took the wrong turn as a civilization, and now, thousands of years later, it will take an enormous effort to correct it. It's eating up all of our resources, time being the most important. That one we're not getting back. Most people are dependent on the game, many don't even know that opting out is a choice. And we're billions, most of the people being part of the so-called lower class. Education, 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 and luck. We're at a point in history where momentum can mean everything, the difference between taking back our freedom from oppressors and slapping a player number on our chest. The choice to change it all needs billions of people to opt out. Discouraging when you think about it. But here's where my hope springs anew: it all starts within the individual. Reaching each and every human is easier than reaching large groups of people. Because, identity is everything. So, my hope truly lies with you. This article is part of a series. Make sure to check out the other posts and videos related to the Squid Game universe.